Good evening. I would like to call to order the December 3rd, 2024 Little Rock City Board of Directors meeting. We would like to welcome those that are in attendance and watching at home and streaming online. Madam Clerk, if we would, please call the roll.
Director Miller. Director Richardson. Director Peck. Director Hines. Director Lewis. Director Wyrick. Director Campiris. Director Phillips.
Present.
Director Adcock. Vice Mayor Webb. Mayor Scott.
Here. I will now have our city attorney give invocation.
Please join me. Our time of feasting is past, and we're wondering exactly how we're going to be able to walk all the places we need to go between now and the end of the year. And we are entering into many traditions into a time of hope. Hope is for things unseen, but that can be made to occur when good people with good hearts work together. There is hope this board will make tremendous strides towards the approval of a budget tonight. There is hope that we will be able to address other concerns that the citizens have. There is hope that the citizens will open their ears and hearts, and that the board will open its ears and hearts, and all of us open our minds to hear what is being said so that we can try to understand what can be done to solve problems that some of us may not even know about. It is with hope that we enter tonight's meeting, and it is with great hope that at the end of this meeting, we will all be able to say together, Amen.
Amen. Please stand for pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag for the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
But I've got one.
Vice Mayor, if you would join me. Members of the board, we want to take this time to recognize the signature sound of Joe T. Robinson of the school. Before we do that, we'll also take this time to recognize Miss Melissa Bridges, former City of Little Rock team member, grateful for her time and service here. We believe her son, John Stephen, who's here today, was a part of this band, and wanted to recognize Melissa and her son first. Whereas the Joe T. Robinson High School Band, fondly known as the Senator Sound, has consistently demonstrated extraordinary skill, dedication, and passion in the art of music, earning a superior rating for the third consecutive year at the Arkansas School Band and Orchestra Association marching assessment, making it the only school in Little Rock to achieve all the superior marks in 2024. Whereas the exceptional program flourishes under the leadership of the Pulaski County Special School District Arts Director, Dr. Joanne Kohler, along with the dedicated band directors Ben Light, Daniel LaRue, Daniel Cooper, and the recently retired Jay Martin, whose legacy continues to inspire excellence. The success of the program is further amplified by the unwavering commitment of the band booster support group led by President Brandy Carroll, who ensures students receive critical resources and encouragement. Whereas the talented and the hardworking students of the Senator Sound Band have invested countless hours into honing their craft, delivering captivating performances that set a high standard for excellence in the world of marching bands. The program has grown from a small ensemble into a thriving group of nearly 300 students, encompassing grades 6 through 12, with many of its members earning university scholarships and securing seats in the Arkansas Youth Symphony Orchestra. And whereas the Senator Sound program is driven by a mission to provide all interested students with a high-quality music education, instilling in them the values of hard work, commitment, and the artistic exploration while fostering a lifelong appreciation for music. And whereas in 2024, the Joe T. Robinson High School Band achieved an unprecedented level of success, becoming the only band in Little Rock to earn superior ratings in the following categories: ASBOA Region Marching Assessment, Region Concert Assessment, State Concert Contest, participation in Arkansas All-State Bands, All-Region Bands, and the All-Region Orchestra. And whereas the astounding achievements of the Senator Sound Band serve as a source of immense pride and inspiration for the city of Little Rock, showcasing the transformative power of music enriching young lives and strengthening our community. Now I, therefore, Frank Scott Jr., Mayor of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, do hereby proclaim December the 3rd, 2024, as Senator Sound of Joe T. Robinson Day. Oh, the band members, please come on. Thank you, Melissa. Congratulations.
You know how to make straight lines.
Emily, if you'll join. Chief Hubbard, join. Members of the City Board, as you know, we cherish each and every member of the City of Little Rock's workforce as they choose to serve our city. And we often present a presentation to those who choose to retire, and particularly those that have been here for quite some time. This is a special moment as we stand here today with Vice Mayor Webb and Acting City Manager Emily Cox and Chief Delphon Hubbard. Many of you all know Mr. Marvin Benton. In recent history, we know he is quite the stickler when it comes to parking enforcement. Every day. But I personally have had the opportunity of knowing him almost my entire life. And my father and him served together in the Little Rock Fire Department. And to truly know a City of Little Rock team member that not only serves this city, but literally sacrificed for this city. And while many people may know him in recent history, during his time as a parking enforcement leader, but he was an unfallen hero as it relates to the Little Rock Fire Department, where he nearly lost his life saving and sacrificing for others. And so today he is retiring, actually yesterday, and we were able to host a retirement ceremony for him at the Central Fire Station. But we also wanted to make certain he came before the city board after 40 years of service combined between the Little Rock Fire Department and the Little Rock Public Works Department. I believe community programs or code enforcement as well. But we're going to ask Mr. Marvin Benton to please join us as we present to him his 40-year his retirement medallion before you all.
Boyd, I just want to say thank you. We had a nice ceremony yesterday at the fire station, so I actually felt like I was retiring from the fire department, which I always wanted to do since I got hurt in '93. Once a firefighter, always a firefighter. So I thank Chief Hubbard for that opportunity and the mayor for me to be able to do that. That made my 40 years yesterday. So we come to an end of a journey, but I think I've only just begun. So thank every one of y'all. Thank you very much.
Members of the City Board, we have one modification for tonight's agenda, and that is M1 to authorize the use for improvements of the Little Rock Port Authority. Is there a motion? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. It will be added to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read agenda item with M1.
A resolution to authorize the transfer of the City of Little Rock's matching funds to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for Section 208 Stump Creek Clearing and Snagging Project and for other purposes, funding from the Limited Tax General Obligation Capital Improvement Bonds. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Positive Results Lawn Services Incorporated in amount not to exceed $284,245.20 for the Durwood Road Drainage Improvement Project and for other purposes, funding from the Limited Tax General Obligation Capital Improvement Bonds. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Positive Results Lawn Services Incorporated in amount not to exceed $51,480 for the Lamarsh Drive at Lucky Lane Crosswalks Improvement Project and for other purposes, funding from the 3/8 capital improvement sales tax. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with H.W. Tucker Company Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $501,951 for the Reservoir Road Widening Improvement Project and for other purposes, funding from the Limited Tax General Obligation Capital Improvement Bonds. A resolution authorizes the city manager to utilize the Arkansas Department of Transportation active list of suppliers and bid prices in an amount not to exceed $300,000 for the purchase of asphalt, concrete, hot mix materials in bulk for the Public Works Department and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Tree Marshal as a primary contractor and Looks Great Services of Mississippi Incorporated as a secondary contractor in an amount not to exceed $250,000 for tree removal and tree trimming services on an as-needed basis within the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Commercial Air in an amount not to exceed $229,325.87 plus applicable taxes and fees for the purchase of installation of 2 boilers and 1 domestic water heater system to be installed at the Central Fire Station and for other purposes. A resolution to approve 2 operator permits and 60 taxi cab permits for WHC Little Rock, LLC, doing business as Z-Trip and doing business as Yellow Cab for the period of January 1, 2025 to December 31st, 2025 and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to execute a lease and maintenance agreement with AAA Business Systems in an amount not to exceed $152,425.35 plus applicable taxes and fees to lease a Rico Pro C5310 copier for the city print shop and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Doing Construction in an amount not to exceed $178,901 plus applicable taxes and fees for the track and burn project to be installed at the Little Rock Police Department training facility and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute any documents necessary to accept the donation of property from the Clifton Family Limited Liability Partnership for the purpose of adding land to expand Rimmel Park and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the Director of Housing and Neighborhood Programs to execute a conciliation agreement with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development as the administrator of CFDA grant number 14-421 for Pulaski, Faulkner, Saline, Lone Oak, Perry, and Grant counties and for other purposes. A resolution to require that the 2024 audit be performed in accordance with the City of Little Rock, Arkansas's financial reporting guidelines and format prescribed by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, and the United States Government Accountability Office, and for other purposes. A resolution to establish that the franchise fees for the use of public right-of-way by utilities within the city of Little Rock, Arkansas will continue in the same amount in 2025 and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute a sixth amendment to a lease agreement between the city of Little Rock, Arkansas and the Oakland and Fraternal Historic Cemetery Park Board as lessors in the Little Rock School District as lessee to extend the lease for one additional term of 1 year effective January 1, 2025, and to approve basic annual rent for the year 2025 in the amount of $13,800 and for other purposes. A resolution authorizes the use of $500,000 for improvements at the Little Rock Port Authority and for other purposes. That concludes the consent agenda.
There's a motion second before we take a vote. Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. And I have a question. I don't know if it's for you or who it would be for, but on the M1 resolution, and I read the resolution, and it brought up some questions. And my first question is, I don't know what account number TS, wherever that is on there, TS 10A03, what account is that? This is a lot of money. So my first question is, what account is that?
Economic development. It's economic development funds.
442,000 are from economic development.
And the other one is an economic development fund that equals the 500,000. Mr. Sarpy's here, and he can tell you more than I can.
Right. All that's been approved by the board.
So it's the old sales tax money. That was.
Okay, so old sales tax money and economic development accounts are not the same thing.
So it's the old sales tax. So there was funding for the port, one for the infrastructure, which is the 442, and port expansion, which is the balance for the 500,000. So those are the two projects.
Let me make sure. So this is actually from the carryover from sales tax.
Yes, the one that expired in 2021.
Not from economic. So it's from that fund that we talked about a month or so ago that we took money from to buy a couple of trash trucks.
No.
No.
No, this is.
Mate, because you weren't here, I think you all remember the board passed a 2011 sales tax that had money in there for both the port and economic development. One of those funds came from that, and then also with the new Little Rock.
This is all.
Yeah,
the whole,
all from them.
that sales tax.
Yep.
So it is from economic development, and it's for a water line. Is CAW involved in this, or anybody else? Or it's just we're just going to pay for it?
We're just going to, as part of the economic development strategy that's brought all these jobs in the port. CAW hadn't played a role in that, ever.
Well, it wasn't clear where it was from, and I wanted to ask since money's tight, and I didn't know where it was coming from.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Miller, then Director Adcock.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess that was sort of the question I was going to ask, but I want to follow up on that and ask, Is there any more money in these accounts? Is there any more money in these accounts?
I believe, sorry.
So this will clear out the infrastructure account. There's still a little bit left in the port expansion. And then as far as the sales tax in general, the old sales tax, there still is a fair amount of money left in there.
So can you be a little bit more specific about a little bit more money and a fair amount of money?
It's all allocated to projects, whether they're parks projects, public works projects.
No, the amount of money that's left in there.
$5 to $10 million, somewhere in that range.
These are all projects that this city board has voted on. And everyone's aware of that. So it's what you call obligated.
These are restricted funds.
These are funds that the city board voted on years ago where you have particular, for instance, public works. There are projects that each individual, maybe not with you because you weren't here during that time. So Director Hendricks agreed to certain things within Ward 1 for parks, for public works, that this whole entire board voted on and said yes and worked with residents. Those that takes time to get engineering, specs, architecture, all of that is in line.
So I can probably get briefed on what
Yes.
specifically was voted on for Ward 1 and Director Hendricks.
Yes,
said.
sir. We can get that to you, and we can remind and refresh any board member that may not. Yeah, we'll get that to you. Yeah. We get it to everybody. For those who don't remember from 2011. You weren't there. Who all wasn't here in 2011, I guess?
2011?
Oh, okay. We'll just get it back. So for the board members who weren't here, we'll get you what your ward members agreed to with the residents in 2011. That's easy. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. We're going to Director Adcock, then Director Hines.
I would also like to have a copy of those
Sure.
for all the wards.
Yes, ma'am. We'll get all the copies of the wards, and John, huh? Yeah, let's just get the whole program. Yep. Director Hines. I'm sorry.
I don't think we need the whole 10 years worth of projects. I think what we're concerned with is what obligated funds are unspent and what projects they're going to. And I think just by ward, put it in a spreadsheet so we can all see where they're going, how much money's been spent, how much money still left to be spent. I think that'll give us the clarity we need.
Sure thing.
I think that kind of subnote on this would have helped a little bit.
Sure thing. We'll do that. But again, we'll make sure of that. Director Lewis?
Yes, I would appreciate that as well, because 13 years later, I would like the opportunity to also have a community meeting to reassess the projects that are on the list. Like, is that an option, or do you have to go with what's already been accounted for on the list? Okay. Because I have a wish list from community members. so I'm
And
just
I know
trying to
John
see-
is saying, yes, we got to go with them. This city board can change anything. So if the city board wants to change this, I'm going to be very clear.
Because, 13 years, so I would like to see what's on the list, because if it's some projects where community members are now saying, well, I'd rather have this instead of this, then,
So if y'all remember, well, some of y'all have been here the whole time. We did not decide every project in 2011 of what we were going to do with the sales tax money. We did 3-year cycles where every 3 years we met with y'all, we met with the public, and we came up a list of projects for the funding that we had available for that particular period or phase of the sales tax program. So when we're talking about 11 years, the projects weren't chosen in 2011. The funding was obligated to be for street and drainage projects. Then we went through that process over that decade of selecting projects, and then we select projects, then you have to design them, acquire right-of-way, do utilities, and then construct those projects. So that's why it takes a long time. So every 3 years, we were starting that cycle over again. So when we have funding that's remaining, it's just for a couple of those projects that haven't been completed for whatever reason that had impacts that were somewhat beyond necessarily staff's control to get them completed already. So it's not, so that when I say we can't go back and change the list, that's because a lot of those projects we're selecting are already done. That funding's gone. It's been expended.
Well, yeah, if I could see available funding, and if there's any wiggle room to get one or two more, especially when it comes to drainage.
Well, and I will, so these projects aren't, nothing's been started on them with this funding. It's projects that have been designed, so it's not like the funding's just not spent. It's obligated. It hasn't been completely expended at this point. Okay.
Thank you. You know where I'm going.
All right. Director did we answer your question, Director Echo? Oh,
Adopt the consent agenda.
there's a motion. Is there a second again? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. We'll now go to citizens' communication. Ms. Esperanza? And I apologize. Yeah, well, I'm not saying you misspelled it, but I'm just reading how I see it. I apologize. Can you share it so I can have the correct pronunciation?
Espinoza.
Espinoza, thank you.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karina. It's not my first time speaking to you at all, and it surely will not be my last, because I share with you the words and concerns of my community that have been ignored far too long. The few times I've spoken with city officials or heard testimonies from fellow residents of Southwest Little Rock, where I live, it seems we have very different views on the reality of our lives. South of 630 is a completely different life than West Little Rock, and despite what many of us may hear, we know that the priorities of this city are not what we need them to be. The 2025 budget consists of focus on public safety and affordable housing. However, I find that these words are a little bit misleading. Public safety simply means more money for police, who routinely do not respond to calls in Southwest or are extremely delayed. Affordable housing means absolutely nothing if the building codes are not enforced and the landlords get away with life safety violations. With that being said, it brings me to the main reason I'm here today and will continue to be. Southwest Little Rock does not get the same flow of resources as West Little Rock. Ward 2, where the empty lot lies, is unrepresented, as unfortunately Mr. Ken Richardson is in the hospital. The responsibility of addressing what plagues us falls on the residents themselves. We use the processes that are in place and report where codes are violated, yet we see the same issues: speeding in residentials, illegal dumping, and lack of community policing. We get told there's no money or no resources to transform that lot into something beneficial for the neighborhood, but $864,000 for the Fusus Center that we, the people, unanimously did not want to fund is completely feasible somehow. We get told it's an uphill battle with the courts to try to give the lot to the land bank for city development. What I hear is that city officials are not willing to even try, even if the courts tell us no at the end of the day. Residents of Autumn Park Apartments and Colonial Park Apartments testify that they experience life safety violations, and it is only until code enforcement is contacted that the landlord may send someone to fix it. Even still, Arkansas does not have a warrant of habitability law that protects tenants from these violations. These slumlords are fine with paying a few hundred or a few thousand every once in a while because they'll make it back immediately from the tenants that they neglect. And the cycle continues. Longtime residents move out, slumlords move in, and the neighborhood gets worse. It's apparent that the underlying problem is the lack of enforcement of laws in certain areas of our city, and it is not coincidental, I believe, that the Southwest demographic is mainly poor Black and Latino people. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Espinoza. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the grouped items for the first time.
An ordinance approving a plan zoning development to establish a planned district commercial titled Hillcrest Group, SCR2 PDC, located at 2923 Kavanaugh Boulevard, Suite G, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance approving a plan zoning development to establish a planned district commercial titled King 2 SCR2 PDC, located at 1200 Bryan Street, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. An ordinance to fix and impose the aggregate amount of fees and charges to be paid to the city of Little Rock, Arkansas by Energy Corp. Corporation and the method of payment thereof to amend Section 9 of the Little Rock, Arkansas Ordinance Number 11,683, December 8th, 1965, and for other purposes. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Ordinance Number 11,366, March 4th, 1963, is amended to provide levying a franchise fee to be paid by Summit Utilities, formerly known as CenterPoint Energy, ARKLA, to provide for the payment thereof and for other purposes. An ordinance to levy franchise fees to be paid by all carriers providing local access telephone service to provide for the payment thereof and for other purposes. An ordinance to fix and impose the amount of fees and charges to be paid to the city of Little Rock, Arkansas by all companies that provide interstate or intrastate long-distance telecommunication services and all business incidental to or connected with the conducting of such telephone business in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, to amend Section 3 of Little Rock, Arkansas Ordinance Number 15,706, July 5th, 1989, and for other purposes. That concludes the first reading.
We suspend the rules and place on second reading.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and move the ordinances to a second reading. Madam Clerk? Sorry. Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Madam Clerk, second reading, please.
An ordinance approving a plan zoning development to establish a planned district commercial titled Hillcrest Group, SCR2 PDC, located at 2923 Kavanaugh Boulevard, Suite G. An ordinance approving a plan zoning development to establish a planned district commercial titled King 2 STR2 PDC, located at 1200 Bryan Street. An ordinance to fix and impose the aggregate amount of fees and charges to be paid to the city of Little Rock, Arkansas by Energy Corporation and the method of payment thereof to amend Section 9 of the Little Rock, Arkansas Ordinance Number 11,683, December 8, 1965, and for other purposes. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Ordinance Number 11,366, March 4th, 1963, as amended to provide levying a franchise fee to be paid by Summit Utilities, formerly known as CenterPoint Energy, to provide for the payment thereof and for other purposes. An ordinance to levy franchise fees to be paid by all carriers providing local access telephone service to provide for the payment thereof and for other purposes. An ordinance to fix and impose the amount of fees and charges to be paid to the city of Little Rock, Arkansas by all companies that provide interstate or intrastate long-distance telecommunication services and all businesses incidental to or connected with the conducting of such telephone business in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, to amend Section 3 of Little Rock, Arkansas Ordinance Number 15,706, July 5th, 1989, and for other purposes. Second reading.
Move we suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance approving a plan zoning development to establish a planned district commercial titled Hillcrest Group, STR2 PDC, located at 2923 Kavanaugh Boulevard, Suite G. An ordinance approving a plan zoning development to establish a planned district commercial titled King 2 STR2 PDC, located at 1200 Bryan Street. An ordinance to fix and impose the aggregate amount of fees and charges to be paid to the city of Little Rock, Arkansas by Energy Corporation and the method of payment thereof to amend Section 9 of the Little Rock, Arkansas Ordinance Number 11,683, December 8, 1965, and for other purposes. An ordinance to amend Little Rock, Arkansas Ordinance Number 11,366, March 4, 1963, as amended to provide levying a franchise fee to be paid by Summit Utilities, formerly known as CenterPoint Energy, to provide for the payment thereof and for other purposes. An ordinance to levy franchise fees to be paid by all carriers providing local access telephone service to provide for the payment thereof and for other purposes. An ordinance to fix and impose the amount of fees and charges to be paid to the city of Little Rock, Arkansas by all companies that provide interstate or intrastate long-distance telecommunication services and all business incidental to or connected with the conducting of such telephone business in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, to amend Section 3 of Little Rock, Arkansas Ordinance Number 15,706, July 5th, 1989, and for other purposes. Third and final reading.
Members of the board, we've had 3 readings. Are there any questions? Are there any questions? Are there any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would please read item number 22.
An ordinance approving a plan and zoning development and to establish a planned district commercial titled King 1 STR2 PDC located at 6415 R Street, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. First reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on second reading.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance approving a plan zoning development and to establish a planned district commercial titled King 1 STR2 PDC located at 6415 R Street. Second reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
Members of the board, is there a motion?
So
Is there a
moved.
second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance approving a plan zoning development and to establish a planned district commercial titled King 1 STR2 PDC located at 6415 R Street. Third and final reading.
Members of the board, we've had 3 readings. Let's make sure. Is this? I'm just trying to figure out what he's speaking. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item number 23.
An ordinance approving a plan zoning development and to establish a planned district commercial titled Providence Properties STR2 PDC located at 719 North Spruce Street, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for other purposes. First reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on second reading.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance approving a plan zoning development and to establish a planned district commercial titled Providence Properties STR2 PDC located at 719 North Spruce Street. Second reading.
There's a motion from Director Hines placed on third reading. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance approving a plan zoning development and to establish a planned district commercial titled Providence Properties STR2 PDC located at 719 North Spruce Street. Third and final reading.
Members of the board, we have 3 questions. I see hand up from Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Could I ask Mr. Jordan to come and
Yes, ma'am.
make a
Good evening, everyone. Yes, ma'am.
And I know that the staff recommended denial.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain that to the board? And I know the applicant's here, and we'll get a chance to hear from him as well.
Sure. When we reviewed this project, staff looked at it, and our concerns were traffic issues, parking, and the concerns from the surrounding neighbors. Those concerns from them included, again, unsustainable increased traffic, noise, and reduced markability and home valuations. So we based our recommendation on that.
Thank you.
All right. The applicant, Mr. Bryan, is here. Are
you ready for me now?
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to apologize for not being more appropriately appointed. I've had, by all accounts, a long day today and got here a little late, so I didn't have a chance to change. I appreciate the opportunity to be heard. I have yet to be at one. First of all, my name is Daniel Bryant. I live at 209 North Woodrow Street in Hillcrest, and about a mile away from this property in question. And would you like me to just speak to the concerns that we just heard from Mr. Jordan?
Yes, sir. You can speak to whatever you want to speak to.
So I believe that those concerns are general STR concerns. They're not only not specific to my particular application, because they don't fit. This particular house that I have applied for is next to the commercial node in Hillcrest. It's next to a commercial building. It's got a commercial building across the street on the corner. It's got commercial buildings behind it. It is the first house on the street, so it doesn't provide through traffic to the neighbors. Just trying to remember what his concerns were. It is a going to be a short-term rental, not something that would be occupied all the time. So theoretically, it would have less traffic. It's going to be used intermittently. I don't really understand what the basis is for making more noise, as if people that come in from out of town, like I do when I travel a lot, make more noise than people who live there. So I don't really understand that and what that is. So to me, it seems like those are concerns that someone would put forth if they just didn't like short-term rentals in general. And we spent about 3, maybe 4 years, I know you guys all know better than I do, trying to come up with what we were going to do for a policy to address short-term rentals, and we did that. And boxes need to be checked, things need to be done, and all those have been done here. Requirements have been met, and as far as I can tell, there's no reason other than some people shooting some emails out today that I was unaware of until now that were even in existence. This has gone through planning. Planning pushed it through unanimously. The director there, Jeremiah Russell, summarily discounted these concerns at planning for the same reasons that I just voiced. And that body and this body approved a short-term rental next door. And the last thing I would say about this property is one of the concerns that Mr. Jordan raised on behalf of the neighbors is parking. It's got its own parking in the front, and it's got a 10-space parking lot in back because it's adjacent to a commercial building that I own. So these concerns are unfounded, frankly. So if anybody wants to take the time, as they did in planning, and pull it up on Google Maps, you'll see that there are no real concerns. I spoke to all of the neighbors that had concerns prior to planning, and all of them, as far as I knew, rescinded their lack of support. That's an interesting way to say that, but so I didn't know there was any further, concern about it. So that's all I have to say. Are there any questions?
A comment. I don't know.
Vice Mayor Webb.
Sure.
And Daniel, I'm just going to make a comment, and I don't really know that it's a question. And as you know, I've looked at the properties. I went with you to visit the property on Hillcrest. I know that there is a parking lot, but I'm also, as you know, I'm on that street a lot. I'm on that street several times a week, and I also know that even in spite of the fact that you say that there's a parking lot, that a lot of people who work in that commercial node park on the street, and parking is a real problem on that street. And I'm not going to summarily dismiss these complaints from these neighbors, and I'm happy to show them to you later so you can see them. These same neighbors, as you said, they did register their complaints before the Planning Commission. Oftentimes people copy me on those kind of things. They don't all. And as you mentioned, one of them did rescind his opposition. He copied me on that, and I was aware of it. But there were other neighbors and multiple neighbors who emailed today with these same complaints. And I understand your perspective, but I also don't think it's fair just to say we're going to dismiss those complaints from the neighbors.
But they're generic. They're not saying we've compared in the context of other short-term rentals why this particular house doesn't work from a parking standpoint. Anything that you do there, if I rent it to someone else, as I do now long-term, he has a vehicle. He happens to have a daughter that's going to be turning 16 soon. She will have a vehicle. So there are going to be 2 cars on that street. You spend a lot of time in Hillcrest. I find it hard to believe that anybody in Little Rock spends more time in Hillcrest than I do. My office is in the building next door. And so there are going to be traffic. There's going to be someone with a vehicle there, right? What we're trying to determine is whether or not this particular short-term rental is going to bring an undue burden or more than the street can handle if it were going to be something else. And like I said, no one's come to either one of these meetings. It's so important to them that they didn't come to planning. They didn't come tonight. There's no one here, no vehement or vociferous opposition. It just seems like they just don't really love STRs. And I understand that people on this board probably don't like short-term rentals, and they're probably sick of them. And I understand people on planning, but there are also people who do like short-term rentals. I travel a lot for business. I use short-term rentals. Oftentimes, if I've got more people with me, you can stay in a house for the same price per night that you can stay in a hotel room and get 3 people in there. If you're a merchant, for example, in Hillcrest, you got on a coffee shop, which we have 3, you have Box Turtle, you have Dandelion. They like it when people come in from out of town and shop there and go to Leo's to eat breakfast. Short-term rentals are a thing, and there are good things about them. Of course, the horror stories where you've got 20 people packed into one house, those aren't good. But that's not this. This is a smaller house. I live nearby. I own the property next door. I go to work there every day. It's got plenty of parking. It's not in the middle of the street. If this is not a good candidate for a short-term rental, then I would like to see what would be a good candidate. What would the city view as a good candidate for a short-term rental? So I'm not hard-headed about it. I just don't really understand what it is. And, just saying, hey, there's all kinds of things. If somebody didn't like the color of the house, they could write you an email and say, that's going to bring down the market valuation on my house. And as someone that's going to be living next to something else is going to come before this board, market valuations, in my view, of things that your neighbors are doing that they are legally allowed to do, just because you don't like what's going on, that's not a thing. So, anyway.
Thank you.
And
Vice Mayor, you have
The only
another.
thing I'll say in response to that is
Sure.
that we do have the right, though, because of the ordinance, to approve short-term rentals
Sure.
or not to approve short-term
Right.
rentals.
And I think that, and again, just my opinion, of course, I respect what this body decides to do, but I think that there should be specific reasons not to approve a short-term rental, not just whether or not someone's got a neighbor or not that's willing to send off an email. Again, we spent a long time. I went to a lot of meetings. I mean, you guys sat there and came up with these criteria. This property meets those criteria. And so the only problem is it's got a couple of people on the street that don't like short-term rentals apparently, because the things that they just mentioned, Mr. Jordan just mentioned, I've addressed. You're not going to have a house that doesn't, you can't, it already has a car there. It's going to have another car there. When someone comes in from out of town, they may not have a car at all. They may want to stay in that neighborhood because of the walkability of the neighborhood. Hillcrest is a desirable place. That's why people stay there. That's why there's an inordinate amount of short-term rentals. And I understand that there are an inordinate amount of short-term rentals in Hillcrest. And if you want to be more selective, I understand that too. But my job here is to speak to the specific concerns, and I believe that I have addressed them on this house. You don't have an out-of-town owner. I'm a known commodity there. So, again, I'll respect the decision of the board, but I just fail to see what the specific concern from a neighbor is, other than, just these things are inherent in all short-term rentals are not things that I'm a fan of. And I don't remember when I was going to the meetings, when the prior director of planning was here, that he said that was going to be how it was going to be. You can make it all fit, everything works out, but if you come in and one of your neighbors doesn't think it's a good idea, we may decide not to do it. I didn't get that, but I understand.
All right, seeing no other questions, we've had 3 readings. We've heard from the applicant. We've heard from members of the city board. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Nay. Ayes have it.
Roll call.
Madam Clerk, if you'll do the roll.
Sit down,
You can sit down, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Director Hines. Director Lewis. Director Wyrick.
No.
Director Campuris.
No.
Director Phillips.
Yes.
Director Adcock.
No.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Peck.
No.
Vice Mayor Webb.
No.
6 noes, 3 yeses, 1 absent.
All right. Nays have it. We'll now transition to our board discussion. Budget discussion, apologies. First and foremost, I want to thank members of the city board who shared questions. We were able to get those addressed. Want to continue that conversation from the last meeting of questions that we had. Director Campuris.
Nick, I appreciate you answering my questions. Is there a way for you, I know there's a way, would you take the questions that everybody asks and your answers and give it to everybody. One of the problems is I ask a question, you answer, and then there's 8 other board members that don't hear the response.
We can do that.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Webb, your hand up? Okay. Director Phillips?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Director Miller, can I use that again? And thank you, Nick, for being responsive to me as well. And I'm gonna ask a few questions about the special projects. I think there were pages 45 and 46 of the handout you presented to us last week.
On the bottom right.
It's on the bottom right. It's in, a lot of them are in the words together.
Yeah, they're pretty tiny. If you look under CLR, it's there. If you'll go ahead with your questions.
Okay, thank you. And I will preface this, Director Sarby, that I think I know the answer to these questions, but I think it's good for the public to hear these as well. If I'm reading this correctly, there were things that we were able to do in 2024 that we do not have the resources to do in 2025. And if I understand pages 45 and 46 correctly, the money we spent to address food deserts, we don't have money to do that, correct?
So that was one-time funding where we were using the lost public sector revenue from ARPA to fund those capital investments or projects.
Understood, but we don't have the money to keep doing it.
So that one was just to acquire
The answer is yes. Just say yes.
And same thing with the senior center.
Yes.
You know, would you advance one slide?
Is on the senior center is number 35.
That's correct. Yep.
One more.
The same thing with fire department capital needs. No resources to do that either, correct?
For what this was, yes. We do have the millage that we're using to buy fire apparatus.
Right, but this money is not happening again in 25. Same thing with the drainage projects for targeted community development. The money that we had in 24, we don't have in 25, correct?
Correct.
Same thing with infrastructure, economic development. We had money in 24, don't have it in 25.
Correct.
Same thing with the micro home village. Had money in 24, don't have it in 25.
So this was for capital. We do have operational budget within the general fund for.
But no additional money to do it. I know we have money to operate, but no additional capital money related to micro home village.
No.
Okay. And then the same things as it relates to sidewalk maintenance or improvements in wards 1, 2, and 7. Had it in 24, don't have it in 25.
That's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to share that with my colleagues in the city. And I think someone mentioned it earlier, money's tight, and I want our citizens to know that we want to do more. But some of the things that you've seen happen, there was one-time money, federal money, it no longer exists. So to our citizens, we can't do what we did. We don't have the resources. And I know that's not on you, you're just answering questions. I'm saying that to all 210,000 people in the city of Little Rock, that there was things that we did do that we may not be able to do in the upcoming year because it's one-time money or federal dollars that we no longer have.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I had, Mayor.
Director Hines?
Thank you. Nick, thanks for getting me this roll-up, and I asked for a ARPA style or CAFR style financials on last year, this year amended budget. I guess the only thing that's missing, Nick, that I would like to see, you gave me on pages 3, 4, 5, and 6, it was the operating revenues and operating expenses for like the, I guess, waste disposal, parking, vehicle storage. What I need is the detail for each department like that. So I know it won't have revenues there, but the expenses for each department as a budget. Because when I look at them on the cover page, they're all rolled up into general administration, all the salaries. So I can't see the detail. Do you understand what I'm asking for?
Yep, we can get that to you.
Okay, thanks. I think that'll help me get a better understanding of the X's and O's. I just need a little more detail where it's lined out by city department. And that would, thank you.
Director Phillips?
Yes, I just want to add clarity, because I know there's been question about code enforcement officers in the city, and I think you and I talked about this, Director Sarpy. On page 38 of the handout you gave us last week, it doesn't list the additional code enforcement officers that we already added in 24. So if you can just kind of give us a little color on that. Maybe this was discussed last week, but I had to leave early. But I just want people to know, I think it was 38, what we talked about. But there's other parts of the budget where those positions are not listed in some of the graphs. So if you can just explain that so the public knows that the code enforcement officers that we have, we're keeping those going into 25.
That's correct. We're not reducing any FTEs. The reason why they're not included on this one was we were focusing on additional positions that were added as part of the end of the year budget process, as opposed to positions that were added during the course of the year.
Right. And I know people are concerned about that. I just want to make sure that we're not losing any.
Nope.
We're going to keep what we had in 2024.
We're not losing any positions.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Director Adcock?
Yes, Nick, two things. First of all, I would like to have copies of the reports that you're providing for for Director Hines, please.
Yep, we're gonna get it to everybody.
Okay, also, I noticed here, I couldn't find a vehicle replacement. And I think when we had that meeting, everyone wanted a vehicle replacement. We're back to having garbage not being picked up. So do we have a vehicle replacement in this budget? And if so, where is it?
We do have money for fleet replacement within the governmental funds. That is one of the special projects, the $2.2 million. As far as in solid waste, we are, as I understand it, still working on a plan for them, but there's also working on doing a rate study as well for replacement and future plans for capital needs for not just the garbage collection, but also landfill outlet waste disposal.
Okay, also, I think last year, or either the year before last, we had 3 or 5 vehicles promised to the building our budget for the animal village. They never received them, and I'd like to know what happened to those vehicles.
I will work to find out the answer for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Adcock. Vice Mayor Webb?
Thank you, Mayor Scott. I'm going to look at my notes. This is from one of the questions that I sent you, the mayor, and acting city manager Cox, that I had a question about, and I'm still not clear on it. So we have the restricted reserve fund that has $13.1 million.
That's correct.
And we have a contingency reserve project, I'm using your word, which is 0.5% of the general fund that we add to it. And as of today, the total for that is 1.3 million.
Right, that's per code, yes.
Okay, and that's the total in that fund, not just what came this year.
That is the total in that project, yes.
Okay, and then we had the solid waste trucks, and that is another, it's called a project, not a fund, and that has $10 million in it.
That is correct.
And that is what we talked about a few weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, Mayor, when we talked about what is going to constitute an emergency. And we've got this thing and that thing and this thing. And so in that, we've got 10 million.
Correct.
And are there any other contingency funds, reserve funds, project funds, regardless of whether or not there are things that we're going to have in the budget, because we're not going to budget out of the restricted. But is this all the money, period?
You can answer the question, but I want to further explain because I kind of see where Vice Mayor Webb is going, and so I think my communication may be more acceptable.
Go for it.
So everyone, again, I'm sure, and this is a good exercise, and I'll, to Director Hines, when you asked for the ACFR, and some of this you can find in the ACFR he passed out. I'm channeling, not trying to channel City Attorney Carpenter as I start, so please bear with me. He caught it. He caught it. All right. When Moody's, S&P, when they want to know how much cash do we have somewhere between 40 to 50 million, depending on any given day, could be 80 million in cash. Because Moody's and S&P wants to know that if all heck breaks loose, what can we liquidate? How liquid are we? And so we're liquid somewhere between 45 and 80 million dollars on any given day, meaning that we could liquidate. However, there are many commitments that this city board has made, individual board members have made to their residents that are in process of being spent. So they are allocated dollars, or Vice Mayor Webb, in your time, appropriated dollars, but those appropriated dollars have yet to be spent. So we got about $80 million in appropriated monies. I'm using 80. It may not be that number, but it's a large number. But most of that number is appropriated, meaning that somewhere along the way, you all have said yes. Some of that, for quite example, is we had the economic development money. You could change today. That $500,000, if you don't want to spend it on the Port Authority that you made commitments to, you can. That's rolled up in there because it hasn't been spent yet. And we can legally draw it down for another use. So that's appropriated. That's from that standpoint. So secondly, going back to the questions that, and this one I think is going to be acceptable, Vice Mayor Webb, we have 13.1 in reserve. There's been a long-standing policy of the city of Little Rock that we put a 1% contingency fund. That's that 1.3. I believe, I can't remember, but we probably at the end of the year we'll sweep that and put that into the 13, or we keep building. I can't remember if we sweep it or not. But long story short, we got the 13.1 that's in reserve. We got the contingency fund that we're mandated to put a certain amount of money in. Then we have the 10.3 million. The 10.3 million is a project for contingency funds. We made a strategic decision in 21 to only use that money. And if you may not remember, we had property millage from 2010 or something. I can't remember the year. I wasn't here. That time, that money ran out. We gained interest on those dollars. So that gave us we created an emergency fund because we wanted to have those dollars for a rainy day. So we created our own rainy day fund. It has $10 million. So when Jim Daly went down, that's where that money came from. When the now 5 of the 7 garbage trucks, that's where that money comes from. Director Computers, when you talk about you want to figure out the sinkhole, I think we figured it out for the Renew Little Rock bonds, but if we didn't have the Renew Little Rock bonds, we would have taken from that. There are certain things that you all have shared that we said that we would come back before you with a list on how to spend. Now, here's the other thing. Just because we got it doesn't mean we need to spend it, because we need it for a rainy day, particularly these type things. So there's no money that's being hidden away. It's all being used, and you spend it. What we can do is just say it's the rainy day fund going forward. If that makes the city board members feel better, but we generally are responding to your request. There was a request because we needed to figure out the garbage trucks. That's where the money came from. Jim Daly, that's where the money came from. And so that's what that is. So now that 10 plus 13.1, that's what, 23. Then you got all these special projects that you all have asked for, and that's somewhere around $20 to $30 million. You may have the specific number, but you roll it up all together. That's what we have available. There's really no money that's unspoken for because you all have allocated it already. We can review and possibly make changes on the stuff from, and I understand where you're coming from on the stuff from the park stuff from 2011. We can definitely do that because half of the city board, not half, but a good portion of the city board wasn't here then. But as Director Honeywell shared, you all actually have been here because a lot of times we're doing it every 3 years. So if you've been here in the last 6 to 8 years, we've had a conversation with you. And we understand time flies. Many times we got to refresh our memory. We'll do that. But all of the dollars is spoken fund. But if someone asks for you, if we need to liquidate today, we got about $50 to $80 million. But we're not going. But you all have spoken for that, so you all are going to make a lot of people unhappy that you made commitments to. But if there's a worst case scenario and a serious disaster, and we need to respond to the residents of Little Rock, we can say no to all of these allocations, and we got about $80 million. And again, I keep saying 80 million, but somewhere around there, Joe, get with Nick after this, get the exact number, as I keep saying 80 million, but it's a lot. Is that better?
Mayor, you did a great job.
I was just hoping to make sure. Thank you. My pleasure.
Well, but I think it's interesting because you and Emily and I were all together when, at the state level, when so many states were going terribly into debt, and they were calling your boss and asking, how did we have this balanced budget and not go into debt? So I'm definitely not advocating that we spend all this money, but I think it's also important for everybody on the board, and there are some people who are newer, to know even how much, I couldn't remember how much, let me see if I can get my thing up, how much money we had in the reserve. And those are things that we talked about a lot when you first got here because we didn't have much.
Yeah, we didn't have the 13.1.
And we needed to have money in there. And I just think it's important for us to know and know the difference. And like at the state level, as you know, an appropriation is not really money because until they pass that funding bill, you could have $1 million appropriation, but there's not necessarily any money to go with it. But your explanation was very helpful, I hope, to people who are watching and others. Yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
No, thank you. And again, it's a credit to our finance team and to you, the city board. I mean, while the sales tax didn't pass, we have passed balanced budget. There are cities across this nation who are not passing balanced budget. We are in the black. We're solvent. We got a very good, are we AA1? What's our new ranking or our current rankings?
So from S&P, we're AA, and from Moody's, we're A, capital A, lowercase a, 1.
Which means very good to the bond market. There are folks from all across this nation that are buying our bonds. And so that's a very good thing. That's a credit to this city board and our finance team. Director Kapir, is your hand? Is that from earlier?
Yes. Going back to that, Nick, how much money do we generate in interest on the money that we make each year?
Well, it's going to depend on interest rates.
Well, I know, but in the calendar year 2024.
So last year we generated about so interest income from both our investments as well as the fair market value was about $13 million in 2023. So for 2024, it's probably going to be somewhere around that number.
And then where does that money go when we generate it? Does it go back into the fund from whence the money we're earning money off of?
That is correct. A lot of that money is our dedicated millage funds, so the 3 mills or the library bonds.
That's how we got the $10 million.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But I was just trying to get an idea of what because the Scott Mazzinelli still manage that.
He sure does.
So I was just trying to figure out.
Yeah, we'll get Scott to call you, but this is not a separate conversation, but I hate to say it that way, but there are ways, I think, Nick and I have discussed this. We have some archaic policies that I think we need to have a policy discussion about, that in this time of being more creative, that we probably could have a larger interest yield to build up other funds. But we had they were good for the time, maybe not good for 2024, but we can discuss that.
No, be an interesting discussion next year.
Yeah.
My question for you is, going back to what I asked before about the micro village,
Yes.
can you give me an idea about how much money we have got put back to manage the micro village each year?
$500,000.
Okay. What's that based on?
That is based on, from my understanding, what the original amount was for contracting out the services for management of the micro village.
And I'll answer that. That's his. We have a potential, I can't remember if it's been out or we've selected yet, but we have selected, I believe, I know the name, I don't want to say the name if we hadn't selected.
I don't believe we have a signed contract at this point because we don't have a micro home village to operate.
So we figure with the potential person that could sign a contract, not person, but organization, that they can manage it at that amount.
And actually, Mayor, I'm getting bad at it too. We'd also discussed or thought about when it was going to open in the year, and that helped drive that number as well. So the
Right.
500,000 may not cover a full 12 months.
Right.
But we also don't expect the micro home village to open on January 1.
Right. So when you have that contract, do we have any
Bless you.
obligation for shortfalls?
Bless you. We would be responsible for, if the contract is for,
Let me just, everybody, we have a person, but we can't sign the contract until we open up the micro home village, till we get close to a temporary CO.
No, I know that, and I'm not asking for anything, but I'm just asking, in the contract, we're gonna put X amount of money in. If there's X plus, who has that obligation? The person we have the contract with, or do we have that obligation?
That's gonna be us. I mean, ultimately, that's gonna be us.
Okay.
Yeah. And never mind, we'll discuss that later. Director Hines, did you have your hand up and took it off, or? I just want to I know sometimes. Yes, sir.
I would caution when we start talking about investments, we could do this with.
Oh, I'm sorry, Director Hines. You got it.
We are severely, where it comes to investment income, the state statute governs that. That is a lot of the reason it's archaic. And if we're gonna change, we have to work within those state statute guidelines, and they are very, very restrictive for a good reason. It's public funds, and we don't wanna put them in anything too risky, but we are, not to say we can't get out of the box, but we've got some definite parameters that unless we go to the state legislature and get them to change it, we're gonna have to operate with it.
No, totally agree. And that's why it'll need to be a policy discussion, or maybe, as we've done before, may create a working committee. We got 3 bankers, a couple folks that are in finance and logistics, and folks that entrepreneur. All right. Director Phillips, and now, before Director Phillips, members of the board, we know there's some things we need to get to you that you've asked for today, just so you can have for reference. As you know, right now, the last scheduled meeting is on December the 17th. Now, clearly, we'll be back here on the 10th. Am I sensing the board, some amicable board that would like us to put this on the December 10th agenda? So for a December 17th vote, do we still need a little bit more time to digest? That's more time to digest, Director Adcock? Everybody, is that what I'm hearing from everybody? More time to digest? Cool. All right.
On the 10th.
That's what I'm getting.
Does that, more time, but would you like to see an ordinance on Tuesday, December 10 to discuss with no expectation to vote on December 10? Okay.
Yeah, well, we're saying the same thing, but we don't expect to vote on December the 10th. Right. We expect to vote on December the 17th. I think what Emily is sharing as well is we would like to put it on the agenda, but when we kind of put it on the agenda, it's kind of close to final. We still got some other things we got to worry about with negotiations. We're very close there, but it's adding and subtracting, so we just don't want to create another board meeting if we don't have to. That's really what I'm trying to get at. Are we gonna, you think we'll be prepared to vote on December the 17th? I'm not saying that we're gonna be prepared to vote on December 10th.
How soon can Nick get us the information we requested tonight?
Tomorrow.
Don't go to sleep tonight.
Potential changes on the 10th.
Yes. So we'll bring a draft ordinance for discussion, not on the agenda. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out between now and the 10th.
Post it online though
Yeah.
on Friday so that it's
Yeah.
out there like we normally would.
All right, Director Phillips, then Director Hines.
Mayor, that's exactly what I was gonna ask, is when we were gonna vote. So you read my mind.
That's the last scheduled meeting we have of the year. Now, if we need to have special meetings, we'll have special, but in recent memory, you guys like to have that time with your families. Director Hines?
Yeah, Mayor, I think the only caveat on that is I would be not willing to vote on anything till we do get our public safety unions contracts finalized. I think that's probably the most important thing we still have open before I'd be willing to vote on any budget. So hopefully we can get that wrapped up by then.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think I'm pretty certain the police is done. It's just some minor things with police, and we should, some things have been sent to the fire department, so I don't expect that to be in a delay. But the numbers are the numbers from that standpoint. But I think major headway with the police, and I think we're getting there with fire. Director Peck?
Thank you. And I sent some questions in, and Emily and you both responded. So I appreciate that. And rather than take up time, I'll just share those with my colleagues.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, can I suggest, just because there are some things out there that on the budget that is in the ordinance that is put out on Friday, we put in big words draft, because that way nobody will think that something they've sent in that hadn't been discussed yet has been decided.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it'll be a big draft. Yes, sir. All right. Can we get a motion to go into recess for executive session? There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. We'll go into a recess. back in order to discuss boards and commissions. Boards and commissions. City Beautiful Commission, Dax Chance, Steve Homeyer, thank you. Sandra Miller, Robert Winchester, Mallory Mounts. Little Rock Citizen Review Board, Michael Harris, Shirley Inkton. Little Rock Food Commission, and we'll come back to some of these on the 17th. Deanna Jones Barlogi, Chris Wyman, and Kevin Shalen. If Kevin's watching, they are not. It's a whole long story, Kevin. We do love Mighty Rib. Little Rock Planning Commission, Joshua Baxter, Norman Hodges, Alicia McDonald, and Kevin Trimble will come back to this on the December the 17th as well. And Sister Cities Commission, Chang Hyun Lee. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Is there a motion to adjourn? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Adjourn.
Don't forget, Glow Wild, this is Zoo Thursday night, if you can come out and support the zoo. Food will be